I was supposed to be cleaning out the attic that evening. The storm outside made the house breathe with me. Wooden beams creaked in time with my chest. Rain smacked the windows hard. It felt like someone throwing handfuls of gravel from the dark. I had set a single lamp on the floorboards. The light trembled every time the wind howled. My plan was simple enough. Box up old things, tape them shut, forget them forever. But halfway through, something changed. The smell of damp cedar and dust turned sour, almost metallic, like wet coins left in rain. That was when I heard her voice, not from the storm, not from the street, inside the room with me. She whispered like she knew me, like she'd always known me. You're forgetting something terrible you never knew. I froze with a photograph in my hand, one I didn't recognize. The face staring back was mine, but the eyes weren't. The attic had been locked for 7 years. My grandmother's things, I thought. Old furniture covered in sheets. Boxes stacked against slanted walls. Nothing that belonged to me. Nothing that should have my name written on it. But there they were. 3 cardboard boxes with my handwriting. My name in black marker. The ink still looked wet. I opened the first box slowly. Inside were things I'd never owned. A silver bracelet with charms I didn't recognize. A leather journal tied with red string. Polaroid photos scattered like fallen leaves. Each one showed me in places I'd never been. Standing next to people I'd never met. Smiling at cameras I'd never faced. In every photo, something else lingered. A blurred shape in the background. Always the same distance away. Always watching. The lamp flickered. The voice came again, closer this time. You're trying so hard not to remember. I picked up the journal. My handwriting filled every page. But the words made no sense. They described days I hadn't lived. Conversations with people whose names felt like stones in my mouth. And scattered throughout, the same phrase repeated. She won't let me forget. The storm grew louder. Or maybe the house grew quieter. I couldn't tell anymore. Time felt thick, like walking through honey. I checked my phone, 3:17 in the morning, but I'd come up here at 8. That couldn't be right. I looked at the phone again, still 3:17. The seconds weren't moving. More boxes lined the far wall, each one labeled with dates. Years I remembered living differently. I opened one marked with last summer. Inside were ticket stubs from movies I'd never seen, receipts from restaurants in towns I'd never visited, a hospital bracelet with my name, my blood type, a date when I was supposedly unconscious. The whisper came from behind me now. You were there. You just weren't you. I spun around. Nothing but shadows and sheet-covered furniture, but the air felt occupied, like someone had just stepped out of view. The lamp dimmed, then brightened. In that brief darkness, I saw her outline, a woman standing by the window, hair dripping steadily onto wooden floors. When the light returned, she was gone, but the puddle remained. I grabbed another photo from the box. This one was different. It showed me at my childhood home. The garden where I used to play. But the house behind me was wrong. Too many windows. Doors where walls should be. And in one of those impossible windows, that blurred figure again. Closer this time. Almost clear enough to see. The journal fell open to a middle page. My handwriting, but shaky. Desperate. She says I did something. She says I forgot on purpose. But forgetting doesn't erase what happened. The proof is in the walls. The proof is in the photographs. The proof is in me. I heard footsteps above me, but I was already in the attic. There was nothing above but the roof. The footsteps continued, slow, deliberate, like someone pacing in a room that couldn't exist. The walls seemed wrong now. They stretched farther than they should. The corner where I'd started cleaning looked miles away. I tried to walk toward it. My feet moved, but the distance didn't change. The lamp stayed exactly where it was, close enough to touch, too far to reach. I opened another journal. This one was older, the pages yellowed and soft, still my handwriting, but younger, more careful. Mom says I sleepwalk. Dad says I talk to people who aren't there. But they are there. They remember what I'm supposed to forget. They show me pictures of the girl I used to be, the girl who did those things, the girl who buried them. Buried. That word made my stomach turn. I looked down at the floorboards. Some were newer than others. Patches of fresh wood among the old, like something had been dug up or covered over. The whisper came from everywhere at once. Look closer at the photographs. I spread them out on the floor, 20, maybe 30 pictures, all showing me in different places, different clothes, different seasons, but always that shape in the background. I held one up to the lamp. The light passed through it strangely, like looking through water. The blurred figure became clearer. A woman. Her face turned away. Her dress the same in every photo, torn at the bottom, stained with something dark. I noticed something else. In each photo, I was looking at the camera, but my shadow was looking at her. The lamp went out completely. In the darkness, I heard breathing. Not mine. Wet and labored, like lungs full of water trying to find air. The breathing got closer. I felt drops hitting my face. Cold, smelling of pond water and rot. The light returned. The woman stood 3 feet away, her back still to me. Water pooled around her bare feet. She spoke without turning. You remember the lake. You remember the stones. You remember my face when you held me under. I stumbled backward. My hands found the wall. But it wasn't wood anymore. It was wet earth, cold and soft, like the inside of a grave. I pulled my hands away. They came back covered in mud that wasn't there. Clean, but I could feel it, smell it, taste it in the air. The woman still hadn't turned around. Her hair hung in thick, wet ropes. Pond weeds tangled through it. Small things moving in the strands. She raised one hand, pointed at the floor near the wall. You put me there, under the new wood, under the old shame. I looked where she pointed. The floorboards were different there, newer, like I'd noticed. But now I saw the pattern. A rectangle, the size of a person, the size of a box, the size of a secret buried badly. My phone buzzed, still 317. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Just one word, dig. I found myself moving toward that spot, not walking, being pulled. My knees hit the floor hard. My fingers found the edge of one board. It lifted easily, too easily, like it wanted to be found. Underneath was darkness, and a smell that made me gag. Sweet and wrong, old flowers left in water too long. Another board came up, then another. My hands worked without me, like they remembered what my mind wouldn't. The hole grew wider, deeper, until I saw it. A metal box, rusted, locked, covered in scratch marks, like something had tried to claw its way out, or in. The lock was broken, had been for years. The lid opened with a sound like breaking bones. Inside were things that shouldn't exist together. A child's toy rabbit, burned photographs, a piece of fabric that might have been a dress once, and at the bottom, wrapped in plastic, something that looked like ivory, shaped like a crescent moon, until I saw the teeth. The woman finally turned around. I wished she hadn't. Her face was mine, but wrong, bloated and pale, eyes clouded like old milk. Water dripped from her mouth when she smiled, not a happy smile, the kind corpses make when gases shift. Now you're starting to remember. The room spun, or I spun. The photographs on the floor started moving, like a flipbook animation. In them, I saw myself walking through woods, carrying something heavy, my face blank, my clothes covered in mud. In the last photo, I was smiling, standing by a lake, alone. But the water showed two reflections. The journal pages turned by themselves, stopping at an entry I didn't remember writing. She won't stay down. I see her in puddles, in windows, in mirrors. She says I killed her. But I don't remember killing anyone. I only remember the dream where I held someone underwater, where I felt them stop fighting, where I buried them in the attic that doesn't exist in the house I've never owned. But this was my house. Had been for 3 years, hadn't it? I looked around the attic again, the furniture under sheets. I pulled one off. It was a bed, my childhood bed, the one with carved roses on the headboard. But I'd never brought it here. It had been sold when my parents moved, years before I bought this house. Another sheet, my grandmother's rocking chair. She'd been dead for a decade. The chair had been burned with her other things, per her wishes, but here it was, still creaking, still moving, like someone invisible was rocking in it. The woman who wore my face stepped closer. Her wet footprints stayed perfect on the wood, not spreading, not drying, just there, permanent. You forgot because forgetting was easier. But I remember everything. The weight of stones in your pockets, the way the moon looked through the water, the sound your hands made breaking through ice. Ice. The word triggered something, a memory that wasn't mine, or was too much mine. December. A lake I'd never seen, but I knew how cold it was, how thick the ice had been, how hard I'd had to hit it to make a hole big enough. Number that wasn't real. I'd never been to a lake in December. I'd never broken ice. I'd never watched bubbles stop rising. The woman laughed. Water gurgled in her throat. You're so good at forgetting. You've had practice. She moved to the boxes, pulled out more photos. These were different, older. The colors faded to sepia. They showed a young girl, maybe 7 or 8. She looked like me as a child, but the clothes were wrong, too old-fashioned. The background too. Houses that hadn't existed for 50 years. In every photo, the girl was alone, but shadows suggested others. A hand on her shoulder with no body attached. A reflection in a window of someone standing behind her. A second pair of shoes by her feet, but no second person. You've been forgetting for generations. Your mother forgot. Her mother forgot. Back and back and back. But we remember. We always remember. The attic stretched again, longer, narrower, like a throat. The walls breathed, in and out, matching my rhythm, or forcing my rhythm to match. I tried to run. The floor moved backward under my feet, like a treadmill, like a nightmare, like a memory trying not to be remembered. The lamp followed me, floating now. Its light didn't behave right. It cast shadows upward, made dark things bright, made bright things disappear. In its glow, I saw more women, all with my face, all wrong in different ways. One burned, one frozen. one with her neck at an angle that hurt to see. They all spoke at once, their voices layered like echoes. You forget. You always forget. But we remain. The floor began to crack, not breaking, opening, like eyes, like mouths. Each crack showed water underneath, black water that reflected nothing, that smelled like old secrets, like buried truths, like the bottom of lakes that shouldn't exist. I found myself at the wall again, but now there was a door, one that hadn't been there before, or had always been there. I couldn't tell anymore. The knob was cold, wet. It turned before I touched it. Behind it was another attic, exactly the same, but reversed. Mirror image, wrong image. I was already standing in it, another me, also looking through a door, also seeing herself repeated, again and again, an infinity of attics, an infinity of me's, all forgetting, all remembering, all trapped. The woman with my drowned face walked through the doorway, through me, like I was the ghost. When she passed, I felt water in my lungs, tasted silt, felt pressure like being deep underwater. She kept walking, through the other me, through the next doorway, spreading wetness, spreading memory, spreading truth. I followed, had to follow. The floor pulled me forward, through doorway after doorway, each attic slightly different. In one, the boxes were opened, their contents spread like evidence. In another, the floor was entirely gone, just black water with things floating in it, things I didn't look at too closely. In the 7th attic, I found the others, women who looked like family, who were family, sitting in a circle, their heads down, their hands linked. They were humming something, a lullaby, one my mother used to sing, one her mother had sung, back and back and back. They looked up when I entered. Their faces were all mine, at different ages, as a child, as a teenager, as an old woman I'd never become, all with those same wrong eyes, all with water dripping from their hair. Sit, they said together. Remember. I sat, not by choice. My legs folded. My hands reached out, took the cold, wet hands of my dead selves. Their touch was like falling through ice, like drowning in reverse, like being born from dark water into darker truth. The memories came like a flood, not mine, but mine, inherited, passed down, hidden in blood and bone in the spaces between thoughts. I saw my mother as a young woman, standing by a well, pushing something heavy over the edge, hearing the splash, walking away, humming that same lullaby. I saw my grandmother in this attic, the real attic, building a box, putting things inside, things that proved what she'd done, who she'd been, what we all were. I saw myself, last month, walking in my sleep, going to places I didn't remember, meeting people who weren't people anymore, making promises I couldn't keep, to let them rest, to remember them, to stop the forgetting. But we always forgot. It was our gift, our curse, our inheritance, to do terrible things and forget them, to kill and continue, to bury and bloom, to drown and drink tea the next morning, like nothing had happened. The woman with my drowned face stood in the center of our circle. Water poured from her now, filling the room, rising steadily, cold and dark and full of things that floated, things that had once been people, people we'd forgotten, people who remembered us. No more forgetting, she said. No more hiding, no more pretending to be innocent. The water reached my waist, my chest, my throat. I couldn't move. The hands holding mine were strong, dead strong. They pulled me down, into the water, under the water, through the water. I was at the bottom of a lake, but also in the attic, both at once, neither fully. The physics were wrong. I could breathe the water, but it hurt. I could see through the murk, but everything was changed. The boxes were here, floating, opening, spilling. Photographs that swam like fish, each one showing a different death, a different forgetting, a different generation of women with my face doing things that made my stomach turn. But I couldn't look away. The water held my eyes open, made me see. There, my great-grandmother, holding a pillow over someone's face. The someone had my nose, my chin, family killing family, the tradition, the pattern, the thing we all forgot. There, me, 3 years old, pushing my cousin into the pool, watching her sink. But I didn't remember having a cousin. Didn't remember the pool. Didn't remember the funeral, where everyone said it was an accident, just children playing. These things happen. There, me. Last week, walking into a stranger's house. They weren't strangers. They were people I'd hurt, people I'd forgotten hurting. They screamed when they saw me, but no sound came out, because they weren't really there. They were echoes, ghosts, memories trying to exist. The drowned woman floated in front of me, her face inches from mine. When she spoke, water flowed from her mouth into mine, tasting of truth. We all forgot. That was the deal, the bargain, the price. Do what we want, take what we want, hurt who we want, then forget. Let the guilt dissolve, let the shame sink, let the memories drown. But someone has to remember. Someone always remembers. She grabbed my face. Her hands were so cold they burned. She pulled me closer. Through her eyes I saw myself. Not my body, my real self. The one under all the forgetting. I was monstrous. Had always been monstrous. The forgetting just made it bearable. Made it possible to wake up, to smile, to pretend I was good. But underneath, I knew. We all knew. The women in my family. We were predators who hunted our own memories, killers who murdered our own guilt. The water started to recede, but it didn't drain. It absorbed into me, through my skin, into my bones, carrying with it all the memories, all the truth, all the things I'd made myself forget. I remembered the lake, the real lake, December 3 years ago. The woman who'd trusted me, who'd loved me, who'd discovered what I really was, what my family really was. She was going to tell, so I stopped her, with stones, with ice, with water that was so cold it burned. But she hadn't stayed down, hadn't stayed forgotten. She'd found the others, the ones my mother had forgotten, my grandmother had forgotten, back and back and back. They'd formed a chain, a web, a trap, waiting for one of us to remember, to break the pattern, to stop the forgetting. I was back in the attic, solid floor, dry air. But I was different, full of water that wouldn't drain, full of memories that wouldn't sink, full of truth that wouldn't die. The woman with my face smiled, but now I saw it wasn't my face. It was her face, the one I'd taken, the one I'd drowned. She'd worn my face to make me see, to make me understand, to make me remember. You can't forget anymore. None of you can. The chain is broken. The water is in you now. Every time you try to forget, you'll drown again. Every time you close your eyes, you'll see us. Every time you breathe, you'll taste lake water. The attic door opened, not the one I'd come through, a different one. One that led down, back to my house, my real house, my normal life. But I couldn't move. The weight of water in my bones held me down, the weight of memory, the weight of truth. Go, the woman said. Live with it. Wake up every morning knowing. Go to sleep every night remembering. Be normal, be happy, be human. But know that we're watching. We're always watching. And if you try to forget, If you try to fall back into the pattern, we'll be waiting. I stood. My legs moved like they were pushing through water. Every step was effort. Every breath was drowning. I made it to the door, to the stairs, down into my hallway, my familiar hallway, with its pictures on the walls. But the pictures were different now, or I was seeing them differently. Every photo of me showed them too. The forgotten ones, standing behind me, beside me. Their faces blurred but visible. Their presence undeniable. They'd always been there, in every moment, waiting for me to see. I went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror. My face was my face, but underneath, like looking through water, was her face. All their faces, layered, transparent, permanent. When I blinked, my reflection didn't. When I moved, it moved a second too late, like it was thinking, deciding whether to follow. I tried to speak. Water came out, just a drop, then another. I was leaking. The lake was leaving me, but not really leaving, just spreading, making everything wet, everything wrong, everything remembered. My phone rang, unknown number. I answered, static, then voices, plural, all talking at once, all saying the same thing in different ways. You remember? You remember? You remember. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number, same voices. I turned it off. The landline rang. I didn't have a landline. But there it was, on the wall, old-fashioned, ringing with a sound like drowning. I ran to my bedroom, closed the door, locked it, pulled the covers over my head like a child. Like that would help. Like anything would help. But under the covers was water, not wet, but the feeling of wet, the memory of wet, the promise of wet. Sleep came somehow, or something like sleep. Dreams that were memories, memories that were dreams. I was at the lake, but also in the attic, but also in 100 other places. All the places where my family had done things, had forgotten things, had buried things. I saw my mother, young, pregnant with me, standing over someone who looked like her sister. The sister I'd never known I had. An aunt who'd never existed, except she had, until she hadn't, until she'd been forgotten so completely that reality had rewritten itself around her absence. That was our real power, not just forgetting, making the world forget with us, erasing people so thoroughly that they'd never existed. Except they had. They do. They're all here, in the water, in the photographs, in the mirrors that reflect things that aren't there. I woke up. My bed was soaked, but not with water, with memory, with truth, with the sweat of remembering. The sun was up, birds were singing, everything was normal, except for the woman standing in the corner, the one with my drowned face, still watching, always watching. "Good morning," she said. "Time to remember some more." Days passed, or seemed to. Time was slippery now. Sometimes I'd look at the clock, and hours had vanished. Sometimes minutes lasted forever. The woman was always there, in corners, in reflections, in the space between blinks. She didn't speak much anymore, didn't need to. Her presence was enough, a constant reminder, a permanent memory. I tried to leave the house. The door opened, the outside was there. But when I stepped through, I was in the attic again. Every door led to the attic. Every window showed the attic. The attic was spreading, or I was shrinking, collapsing into the space where memories lived. I found more boxes, new ones, fresh ones, labeled with dates that hadn't happened yet. Next month, next year, next decade. Inside were photographs of things I hadn't done, yet. People I hadn't hurt, yet. Memories I hadn't forgotten, yet. But I would. The pattern was clear. Even knowing, even remembering, I would continue. Because that's what we did. What we were. What I was. A forgetter. A monster who forgot its monstrosity. A killer who killed its own guilt. The woman laughed. Not cruel, sad. You think knowing will change you. But knowing just makes it worse. Now you'll watch yourself do it. Watch yourself forget. Watch yourself become the thing you fear. And you'll be helpless. Because the pattern is older than choice. Older than will. Older than memory itself. She was right. I could feel it already. The forgetting creeping back. Not of her, not of the lake, but of the feeling, the horror, the revulsion. It was fading, becoming bearable, becoming normal, becoming nothing. My partner came home. I heard the door, their footsteps, their voice calling my name. But I was in the attic, had been for days, hadn't I? Or was I in bed? Was I in both places? Was I in all places? They appeared in the doorway, smiling, normal, alive. But when they spoke, water dripped from their mouth. You're forgetting something terrible again. I looked at them, really looked. Their face was familiar, but wrong, like a photograph I'd seen. In the boxes, in the memories, in the list of people who hadn't existed until they had. I know what you did to me, they said. What you're doing, what you will do. But I love you anyway. That's the worst part. I love you knowing you'll forget me, knowing you'll erase me, knowing I'll end up in the lake with the others. They walked closer. Their footsteps splashed. The floor was water now. Had always been water. Would always be. Water dot. They took my hand. It was warm, real, alive. For now. But not today. Today you remember. Today we pretend. Today we're normal. Tomorrow you'll start forgetting, and I'll start drowning. But today, we have today. They led me from the attic, down stairs that were sometimes there, through doors that were sometimes doors, into a kitchen that was sometimes a kitchen. We sat at a table, drank coffee that tasted like lake water, ate breakfast that looked like photographs, talked about things that hadn't happened yet. The days became a pattern. Wake up. Remember. Try to forget the remembering. Fail. See the woman in corners. See the others in mirrors. Feel the water in my bones. Go through motions. Pretend to be human. Pretend to be normal. Pretend to be good. But at night, in the attic that was sometimes there, I read the journals. All of them. Mine. My mother's. My grandmother's. Back and back and back. The stories were the same. Just names changed. Faces changed. But the pattern never changed. We were a family of forgetting. Of erasing. Of making things not exist. People. Memories. Guilt. We were editors of reality. Cutting out the parts we didn't like. The parts that hurt. The parts that remembered. But the cut parts didn't disappear. They went to the water. To the lake that existed in no maps, in no memories, in no reality except the one we'd forgotten. They waited there, patient, permanent, preparing. For what? I found the answer in the oldest journal, written in a language I didn't know but could read, written by the first of us, the one who'd made the deal, the bargain, the trade. Let us forget, she'd written. Let us be monsters who don't know we're monsters. Let us kill without killing, hurt without hurting, destroy without destroying. And in exchange, we'll feed the lake. We'll give it our erased, our forgotten, our never-weres, until the lake is full, until the lake is ready, until the lake remembers everything we've forgotten. The lake was almost full. I could feel it. In the weight of the water, in the number of faces and mirrors, in the crowd of forgotten ones growing larger. One more generation, One more forgetter, one more memory erased, and it would overflow. What happened when a lake of forgotten things remembered itself? When all the erased suddenly existed? When all the never-wers suddenly were? The woman with my drowned face knew. She stood beside me as I read, her hand on my shoulder, cold, wet, real. We come back, all of us, all at once, and the world has to make room, has to rewrite itself, has to remember what it was forced to forget. And those who did the forgetting, they become the forgotten, they become the never-wers, they go to the lake, forever. I understood then, the pattern, the purpose, the price. We hadn't been escaping consequence. We'd been delaying it, building it, feeding it, making it strong enough to reverse, to flip, to exchange the forgotten and the forgetters soon, very soon. Maybe tomorrow, maybe tonight, maybe now. I looked at my partner, still sitting at the table, still drinking coffee, still pretending everything was normal. But their eyes were starting to fade. Their edges were blurring. They were beginning to be forgotten. The process had started. The final forgetting. The one that would complete the pattern. "I'm sorry," I said. They smiled. Water ran down their cheeks. Not tears. Lake water, memory water, truth water. "I know. You always are. After. But never before. Never during. That's what makes you what you are." That night, I went to the attic one last time. The boxes were gone. The photographs were gone. The journals were gone. Everything was gone except the woman. The women. All of them. My drowned family of forgotten souls. They stood in a circle, waiting. "It's time," they said together. The floor opened, not breaking, dissolving, becoming water, becoming the lake, rising up, swallowing the attic, the house, the world, everything becoming lake, everything becoming memory, everything becoming real. I felt myself forgetting, not them, me, my name going first, then my face, then my body. Piece by piece, I was being erased, edited out, made to never have been. It didn't hurt. It was almost peaceful, like sinking into warm water, like going to sleep, like coming home. But as I faded, they solidified. The forgotten ones, the erased ones, the never-wers. They were becoming real, taking my place, my reality, my existence. They would live the life I'd lived, but differently, without the forgetting, without the pattern, without the lake. Or would they? As my last thought dissolved, I saw them clearly, their faces, so familiar, so much like mine, and in their eyes that same look, that same capacity, that same inheritance. They would forget too, eventually, inevitably. It's what we were, what we are, what we would always be. Forgetters, erasers, feeders of the lake. But I wasn't gone, not completely. I was in the lake now, with all the others who'd been forgotten, looking up through black water at the world we'd lost, watching the new ones, the remembered ones, starting their lives, starting to forget. The woman who'd worn my face was there too, but she wasn't angry anymore, wasn't vengeful, just tired. We all were, tired of remembering, tired of being forgotten, tired of the pattern that never ended. "How many times?" I asked, though I had no voice. "Always," she answered, though she had no mouth. Forward and backward, forgetting and remembering, above the water and below. The pattern doesn't end. It just inverts, reverses, continues. I understood then. We weren't victims or villains. We were both, neither. We were the mechanism, the engine, the thing that kept reality editing itself, removing what hurt, adding what helped, forgetting pain, remembering pleasure, until the balance shifted, until the pain demanded to be remembered, until the forgotten demanded to exist. Then we'd switch. The forgetters would be forgotten. The forgotten would forget. And it would all continue. Had always continued. Would always continue. I watched from the lake as my replacement lived my life, made my choices, forgot my memories. She looked just like me, was me, had always been me. I'd just forgotten. Time in the lake was different, non-linear, all at once. I could see every generation of my family simultaneously, past and future, all forgetting, all forgotten, all feeding the lake that was always hungry, always patient, always there. I saw the first of us, making the deal, not with something else, with herself, with the part that wanted to forget, the part that couldn't live with what she'd done. She'd split herself, memory and forgetting, lake and land, truth and lie. We were all her, fragments, echoes, ripples, playing out the same division, the same struggle, the same pattern. We weren't a family. We were one person, broken into generations, scattered across time, trying to forget herself, trying to remember herself, trying to be whole. But wholeness meant accepting both. The terrible things done, the terrible things forgotten. The monster and the human, the lake and the land, the memory and the absence. From the water I reached up, not to drag anyone down, but to connect, to bridge, to heal the split. My hand broke the surface. For the first time in forever, the lake touched the land without violence, without revenge, without forgetting. My replacement, the one living my life, reached down, our fingers touched, and in that moment, we were one. Not forgotten and forgetter, not monster and human, not memory and absence, just ourselves, complete, terrible, beautiful, whole. The lake began to drain, not disappearing, integrating, flowing back into the world, into reality, into memory, making space for all of it, the things done, the things forgotten, the people erased, the people who erased, all of it, real, present, acknowledged. I stood in the attic, dry, solid, real, but different, full of everything, remembering everything. The woman who'd worn my face stood beside me. Not my face anymore, her own face, beautiful, terrible, human. You remember, she said. I remember, and you'll keep remembering? I'll try. She smiled, faded, not disappearing, just becoming memory, proper memory, the kind that stays but doesn't haunt, the kind that teaches but doesn't torment, the kind that exists without erasing everything else. The attic was just an attic. The boxes were just boxes. The photographs were just photographs. But they were also more. They were truth, history, evidence of what we were capable of, what we'd done, what we'd forgotten, what we'd remembered. I went downstairs. My partner was in the kitchen. The real one. The one I hadn't erased yet. Wouldn't erase. Couldn't erase. Because I remembered now. Remembered the cost, the pattern, the price. They looked at me, saw something different, something new, something old. You look like you've seen a ghost. I have. I am. We all are. They didn't understand, but they would, eventually, when I told them everything, the truth, the family, the lake, the forgetting, the remembering, the pattern I was trying to break. But breaking patterns isn't easy, especially ones written in blood, in bone, in the space between memory and forgetting. Every day I felt the pull to forget, to make things easier, to erase the parts that hurt, small things at first. An argument with my partner, a mistake at work, a moment of shame, the urge to forget them, to make them not exist, to edit reality just a little, just enough to breathe. But I remembered the lake, the faces in the water, the price of forgetting. So I held on to all of it, the good and bad, the beautiful and terrible, the things I wanted to remember and the things I desperately wanted to forget. It was like holding water. It leaked through my fingers, slipped away when I wasn't watching. I'd catch myself forgetting. Small erasures, tiny edits, a conversation that went differently in my memory, a person whose name I couldn't quite recall, a day that seemed to have disappeared. The woman would appear then, not threatening, reminding. She'd point to the thing I was forgetting, make me see it, make me remember, make me hold it even though it burned. This is the work, she'd say. This is the choice. Every moment, every memory, every truth. Some days I failed. The forgetting would win. Something would disappear. Someone would fade. And the lake would grow a little. Not the big lake. The one inside me. The one we all carry. The space where forgotten things wait. I started keeping journals, like my mother had. My grandmother, all of us. But different. These weren't records of things to forget. They were reminders to remember. Every day, every detail, every difficult truth. I wrote about the lake, the woman, the pattern, the family curse that wasn't a curse but a choice, made again and again, generation after generation, to forget or remember, to erase or accept, to feed the lake or drain it. I wrote about my partner, still here, still real, still unaware of how close they'd come to never existing. I couldn't tell them, not all of it. The truth was too heavy, too strange, too much like madness. But I told them pieces, fragments, enough to make them careful, enough to make them watch me, enough to make them pull me back when I started to fade. Because I was fading, not into forgetting, into remembering. Too much, all at once. All the things my family had forgotten, all the people we'd erased, they were all in me now, crowding, demanding, existing. Sometimes I'd look in the mirror and see dozens of faces, all the never-weres, all the forgotten ones, all asking the same question. Why us? Why were we chosen to disappear? I didn't have an answer, only the truth, that there was no reason, no logic, just convenience. They were erased because they were erasable, forgotten because they were forgettable, not because of who they were, but because of who we were. Monsters who couldn't live with being monsters. So we made others disappear instead.